Welcome to the Pop Culture Pastors Hour. We are two pastors who love to go deep into movies, TV, music, and, well, lots of other things to explore where pop culture meets life, faith, and meaning. We're glad that you joined us today. So, welcome. You can subscribe to Pop Culture Pastors Hour on Substack. Just search for it on there. I think we're probably the only one that's similar to that. And you'll also find us on your favorite podcast app. So welcome. I'm Edward Goode, and I write at Imago Scriptura on Substack.
And I'm MaryAnn McKibben Dana, and I write at the Blue Room on Substack. And so we're glad to have you with us. We have just one programming reminder, which is a week from today at 1 Eastern, we are going to be talking about The Pit. So several of us have been watching. We have two special guests with us, Christine Vaughn Davies and who else
My
are we with
wife,
us?
my wife, Amy Snow.
Yes, we all have varying experiences as chaplains in hospitals or healthcare settings. And one of the things we have all felt watching The Pit is, wow, that place needs a chaplain. So, and I will say I've watched the first episode of season 2 and they do mention a chaplain. That's as far as I've gotten. I don't know whether more chaplain content will show up or not, but we're going to make our pitch for why the good people of The Pit need chaplains. So
Yeah.
that will be next Monday.
Yes. And what's great about Christine and Amy is that they are both chaplains themselves. So while MaryAnn and I both have chaplaincy experience, and obviously pastoral care and so forth, Christine and Amy both have lived it deep in hospital and healthcare settings. And so bringing their perspective will be really good for talking about it.
Yes. So we'll hope to see you next Monday, the 6th of April at 1 p.m. Eastern. Of course, you can also access it on the Pop Culture Pastors Hour feed on Substack afterward, as well as on in your podcast app of choice. So, but today, long awaited. This one we've had cooking and scheduled for a really long time. 2 weeks ago, we took up Project Hail Mary, the Andy Weir book, the novel that came out in 2022 or so. And we got all of the good kind of book content out of the way in anticipation of today, the movie. And we hope that those of you who are joining us live, we're glad to have you here. We hope you've seen the movie, but if you haven't, run right out and do so. And this will be a spoilery conversation because we're going to dive deep into the movie, connections to the book, changes they made, themes, all that good stuff. So with that, let's go ahead and talk about our experience just generally of seeing the movie and general impressions. And then we'll start to dive a little deeper. So Ed, I know you've seen the movie twice now.
Twice. I was tempted for a third, but so we actually saw it twice in less than 24 hours. So
nice.
Yeah, we saw it at one of the IMAX theaters here in Cincinnati, and then we drove to about an hour and 20 minutes to Indianapolis to see it in 70 millimeter IMAX, which was crazy big screen and really, really great. Although I have to say, it was weird. I think the audio that we heard in the first one was better. But then, and the picture was great in the second one, but they also had a problem that happened right at the moment when Ryland walks out of the karaoke moment and has the conversation on deck, and the movie just stopped. And so they had about a 15-minute fix getting it back. And because of how long it took, they actually ended up skipping about 2 minutes of the movie. So I'm really glad that I saw that the night before because I knew what happened. But I was feeling for all the people who hadn't. But anyway, my experience, the first time I think it was more of just kind of like a relief. Like, yeah, they did it. They really got it. They got the spirit of it. And the second was a little bit more of kind of like taking in and just really enjoying it and soaking in what I thought was just a terrific uh, rendition of the book, but also really making it kind of its own story as the movie. So we're thrilled. So
Well said. I also have seen the movie twice. I saw it. I think we saw it the same night, just two different locales with our respective families. We saw it the first night at the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum Annex, which is here in Northern Virginia, the Udvar Hazy. Big IMAX theater, really excited crowd, people wearing their I am Knuff, like the Ryan Gosling fans wearing their Barbie kind of merch, and other people that you could tell were very well acquainted with the book. And um, great experience. I will say that the sound in that theater was not as crisp, and there were some lines that I did not get, and I realized that my kids have really rubbed off on me, and I really like the closed captioning that we use by matter of course. I think it's a Gen Z thing that they just love having the closed captioning on. Um, and then the second time, saw it yesterday at Dolby Cinema. So my husband assured me Udvar Hazy is the best screen in Northern Virginia. The Dolby Cinema at Tyson's Corner is the second best. So we saw it in these primo locales, which was a little extra, but um, got a lot more out of it the second time. There were little details that I noticed a lot more the second viewing, and then there was also just as you can imagine from a Dolby theater, just a lot sharper sound. So there were some lines that were a little muddy the first time, and I was able to grab those and appreciate them much more. And yeah, I'd gladly see it a third time. It's just a whole lot of fun. Even at 2.5 hours, I think it goes quickly. Even when it's paced more slowly, I think it earns that. It's really really getting you into the kind of wonder of the central relationship in
yeah.
in the film. So
Yeah, my sister has only seen it once, but she had this really cool experience where she'd sat down and there was a family, mom and I think a couple of her kids who were with her, and they just kind of got chatting before the movie. And basically, the woman basically they kind of adopted my sister into their family and gave her a amaze 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 sticker. Um, as a part of kind of being brought into their plan for it. So I just thought that
oh,
was
that's
great
great.
too.
That's
So
great. Well,
yeah.
and my youngest saw it a few days after. I saw it initially with my husband, and then my oldest and her boyfriend, and then my youngest saw it a few days later. And let's see if I can. There it is. Got
Ah.
a poster. So we've
Woohoo.
got and I just commandeered it because she didn't put it in her room, so I'm gonna have it instead. So believe in the Hail Mary
There we
is
go.
the log line there. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So we wanted to at least so that was kind of where we wanted to start was just the general impressions because I think both of us were excited, but also, well, I'll say for me, I was nervous. Like even though the reviews had all been great, I was still like, they gonna make the landing, and I
yep,
think they did. So I was happy
agree.
about that.
Agree.
So we wanted to start off with what were our favorite and least favorite things that were changed from the book to the movie. Every book that's made into a movie always will make changes. Always, always, always. No matter how long the such as like the Lord of the Rings extended, still lots of changes.
Yep.
Um, so knowing that is always that okay. What are we okay with? What are we not? And so, MaryAnn, do you want to start off with that?
Sure. Yeah. And my favorite change that they made was the karaoke scene. One thing we didn't talk about 2 weeks ago when we talked about the book was Eva Stratt, that
True.
amazing character who runs this whole Hail Mary project, played so beautifully by I think Sandra Hüller, I think is her
Healer.
name.
Yeah. Mhm.
And you get a lot more of her character, obviously, because it's a book. You have more time to really marinate with her character, and she's just as dry and funny in the book as she is on screen. But the scene where you really see the camaraderie of the people who are willing to make this suicide mission, basically, where they're going to get sent into space and don't have enough fuel to come back, and the way they kind of come together. And then Eva comes in, they're all singing karaoke together, and she comes in and sings. The title of the song is just, it's the Harry Styles. It just escapes me. It's a perfect song at that moment. She sings it really well, and it was organically done. I mean, it was not part of the original script, but Sandra Hewler liked to sing.
Sign of
And
the times.
Sign of the
Sign of the
Times.
times.
Thank you. And it's really kind of a, like, end of the world type of, like, really dire sort of lyrics. And I really like that they include, that's just something that you wouldn't have in a book, but it's a way of showing something that show versus tell. The book kind of tells a little bit, and they're able to really show some of her character, because she sings, and then at the end she says, halfway through the song, okay, that's enough, like, I'm done. Which is very her.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's just a fascinating character. So that was my favorite change that they made. And I'm
Mhm.
curious if you go ahead and say your fave, and then we'll talk about the things that maybe didn't work as well for us.
Well, if I can just pick up on one thing
Yeah,
on the karaoke also, and this ties in with something we'll get into later, but, um, I mean, I loved the, Eva Strat's piece. I mean, obviously, it's amazing. But as a big hair metal fan, having them, the Russian, astronaut, and again, I'm forgetting her name, singing "Wind of Change" by the
yeah,
Scorpions. Like, I adore that song. I saw the Scorpions do that one live at Red Rocks. Like, it was
nice.
awesome. But also, it had this sense of what it is to come together across differences, and we'll get into that. But that was the other part. I love the fact that that was, that choice of song, not just because of my hair metal, not that I have much hair left, um, side of things. But so my favorite change was at the end. Um, I loved the fact that you saw them back on Earth. In the book, that's not there. All that you get in the book is sort of just like the scientific observations that the sun is not, getting dimmer any longer. I'm trying to remember if it actually is brightening back up. I forget, but they got a sign that it was, things had stopped, at least, that gave this sense of, okay, things are going to be okay there, or somewhat. Um, I love the fact that they went back to Earth. You saw Ava Strat again, um, and that moment of, she had the figure and them seeing Rocky, and like this, I thought that was a really beautiful addition to it. Um, and I'm assuming, I don't know where in the ocean they were, but that very icy, of like showing things aren't great there.
Yeah.
And now they've got their work cut out to actually make this thing work.
Hmm.
I love that. I thought that
Yeah.
was beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something that I was so overwhelmed the first time and just taking it all in, that it didn't land with me the first time that they were in this icy ocean. And
Mhm.
presumably, I mean, in the book, I think they're in the Indian Ocean. Um, could be the Pacific Ocean, but they're just way out in the middle of nowhere for reasons of security and safety. And so that was bracing to think about, like, cutting through the ice. I mean, you see that. And again, it just kind of went over my head because there's just so much to take in the first time. The second
Mhm.
time, it really hit emotionally. And I think we'll talk about that a little more as we get into kind of some of the themes and stuff, because I agree that was very effective to
Mhm.
return to that. And it's something you can do I mean, if you're in a first person story, as Andy Weir wrote it, you don't have, I mean, it's not a limited omniscient narrator where you could just go anywhere. And this really benefited from
Mhm.
being able to see
Mhm.
her. And she acts just so well, just this kind of sense of, like, satisfaction and vindication. Because as if you watched the movie or seen the book, she forces him to go. I mean, she
Yeah.
basically kidnaps him,
Yes, she
puts him in a
does.
coma, and puts him on that spaceship. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
really great ending for her.
Mhm.
which,
And
as
I
you
can
point, is a new
imagine,
beginning,
yeah. And I can
Slowly.
imagine the little figure, the one that Rocky made. Like we were talking about it at dinner with our family. And side note, it was really great. Just happened that all three of our kids were home for spring break when this came out. And so we
Awesome.
all got to see it together, which was so great.
That's
But
great.
we were talking that we could imagine that figure that Rocky made being sort of like the honoring statue of Ryland,
Yes,
um, and not
that's
just sort
great.
of like a, chiseled out of stone,
Yeah.
humanoid looking thing, but instead like that. I just
Yes,
so thought that
that's
would be cool.
great.
So,
I love
yeah,
that. I love that.
yeah.
Um, my least favorite is really a quibble. I mean, this movie is so effective. It's so well done. It's just like The Martian in that you read the book, you listen to the audiobook, you watch the movie, you get different things, and I think they're all equally effective. I think the same is true. And in fact, did Ray Porter, who's the narrator of the audiobook, was there a little feature before the movie, the screening that you saw?
No,
He does a
no.
little I'm really glad they gave him his due because his narration is absolutely flawless of this book. And it's just a little like you get to see what he looks like. He's kind of like long hair, sort of grizzly, He might have a beard, if I remember correctly. And he's basically like, "Did you love the movie? Guess what? You get to relive it again. Just go watch listen to the audiobook." So it was a little promo for him, but also just giving him, I think, the props that he absolutely deserved. It's just one of the best renditions of the book. Anyway, um, so my quibble is, again, it's minor, is that in the book you really get a sense of the two of them working together, solving problems together, sciencing. If you want to borrow from The Martian, we're going to science the you know what out of this. They do a lot of that in the book, and you just don't see that much of it, and I understand why. It's kind of maybe it'd be a little boring or a little like you'd have to explain a lot, like what are they doing together, what are they solving, all of this kind of stuff, but you don't get a sense of Rocky's peerlessness as an engineer. Like there's no problem he can't solve. Instead, you see a lot of their bonding as a friendship on this holodeck where they have like, there's trees and Ryland Grace shows Rocky what fishing is. They go fishing together. And um, I get why they did that because it's just easier to say they're becoming friends. They're learning about each other's worlds, but I don't know. I want to see them science together. So that was maybe a quibble that I understood, but it was just something I really deeply missed. Their conversations as they're understanding each other. And so it's really more of a montage with some fun music and they have fireworks going and the beach and all of this stuff. And I just kind of want to see them solving problems. So that was my quibble. It's not a big one
Mhm.
and I understand it, but I did miss that.
But it did have Rocky's savior of the world hat.
It did, and
So
his I mean, we
sorry.
should really, pause and say they nailed that character. That puppet
Yeah.
was I mean, you can see why Ryland would die for that character. It's so, so well done, and his little celebratory, like, his little,
Mhm.
ceremonial garb that he puts on is just so
So great.
precious. The voice
Yeah.
is great. Just wow, they knocked it out of the park. So
Yeah.
yes, he gets the savior of the universe kind of
Yeah.
little party hat.
Yeah, yeah. So my least favorite has a similar sense to it, which is something that they skipped over really almost entirely, which is, and again, I understand why it's not in the film, but it's the very beginning. The process of Ryland figuring out where the very beginning things of like, where am I?
Mhm.
And you get the tiniest little taste of it when the first thing he said was, "What's 2 plus 2?"
Yeah.
And he can't answer it. But then in the book, it expands upon that. That he's got to. There's all these little like mental and physical things he's got to do before he can even get out of that chamber.
Mhm.
Um, and so I totally get why they didn't do that, because I think that would have been a killer way to start the film.
Yeah. Yeah.
They really had to get into something. And I think that's probably similar why they de-emphasize the sciencing.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
but I really felt like they kind of jumped way fast into, okay, Ryland's getting this figured out. Where
Mhm.
so I'm hopeful, actually. The rumors are that the original cut of the film was like 3.5 hours long.
Bring it
Yeah.
on.
We
Buying that
want
4K.
that's right. We want the extended edition.
Yes.
So yeah, I am hopeful that on the disc
Yeah.
that, and those scenes wouldn't surprise me if there was more of the sciencing scenes, more of those scenes of Grace getting his wits back about him,
Mhm.
but just that they were just for the pacing of a film.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
It makes sense. I agree. Yeah. The I had the same reaction and was really because the computer who he comes to call Mary, like she calls him by his name at some point. Uh the Dr. Grace, and I'm like, no, he's supposed to figure out what his name is.
Mhm,
So yeah, they had to go with a quickness to kind of the central sort of conflict and that sort of thing.
mhm.
And while we're kind of talking about little things that we quibbled with, I do want to shout out my husband's main issue with the movie is that so Ryland Grace's original research where he got his PhD was basically arguing that you don't need water for life. And they discover that the astrophage has H2O in it. And so it really, his one original idea, he says, proves to be false. But Rocky comes to be proof that water is not essential for life. Like Rocky vindicates Grace's theory, but they don't make a big deal out of that in the movie at all. I don't
Yeah,
think they make a deal at all. And
I don't
Robert,
think so.
this was his main beef. He's like, Ryland Grace was right. And
I hadn't even thought
again, this
about
is
that.
like
Yeah.
sciencey people are going to care about that. I think most people watching the movie aren't going to care, but um, he was right. And here's
Mhm,
this, and they don't get into this much in the movie of what Rocky's made of and the atmosphere on his planet and the gravity and all that stuff. And again, I'm
mhm.
good that they didn't do that, but I did think that was worth mentioning. There's another
Yeah,
beef to share.
yeah. But Rocky did enjoy jumping into the water, at least in his little suit at the end.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
So
So I did have one other just small thing, and I think is a very important question to ask. So there was the whiteboard where he was kind of making the little notes, and one of them that is a big debate in our house is says, I think it said, "I'm okay with cilantro."
yes,
So so I am me and our youngest daughter are, the 2 out of our 5 who are good with cilantro. So, MaryAnn, how about you? Are you a cilantro
yes,
person? Are you
I'm a
okay,
fan of cilantro. I don't have the
okay.
soap thing. Although I remember the first few times I tasted cilantro, I was like, I don't know what's going on here. It wasn't I hate it. Now that I kind of understand the taste, I'm like, I love it. Yeah, bring it on.
Mhm,
So
mhm, okay.
So yeah, did his like little MREs like have cilantro
Oh, I know.
flavor in them?
Exactly.
Yes, very
Yeah,
very strange, very
yeah,
strange.
yeah.
Yes, good. Answering the tough questions here at Pop Culture
That's right.
Pastors Hour.
That's right.
And if you're
Going deep.
just joining us, we're talking about Project Hail Mary. So
Yeah.
keep you up to speed here. So you know, one thing I wanted to bring up that I guess you might have missed if those 2 minutes. I mean, you saw it the first time, but those 2 minutes, does that include the "Do you believe in God"? I mean, I feel like as two pastors, we have to take that up.
Yep. Yeah, that was missed in
That was missed
the
when the sound went out the second time. Okay, that's
yep.
interesting. So yeah, for those who need a reminder or haven't seen it yet, there is a little bit of "Do you believe in God" in the book, although it's not Eva Stratt. It's a character that ended up getting completely cut. I think the Canadian guy. Anyway, but they're talking about this mission, and Eva Stratt says, "God willing," And Ryland's like, "So do you believe in God?" And she said something like, um, "It's better than the alternative." I don't remember if that's
Hmm.
exact, but that's the
Pretty
sentiment.
much, yeah.
So kind of the Pascal's wager type of idea of like it's a bleaker world to imagine God not as a force for good. But I'm curious how that in a movie so infused with science and I think very much an apologist for science, and that's one of the things we love about it. What did you any reactions to that piece of it?
Um, I kind of missed, and again, this is a film to movie or book to movie. Um, the what they had within the book was a little more pulled out. It did feel a little bit sort of like we got to throw the G word in here, a little
Yeah.
bit. And there is a much more of a conversation between Ryland and that other character. And I pulled the quote out, which said, you know, this other character asking Ryland, "Do you believe in God?" I know it's a personal question. I do. And I think he was pretty awesome to make relativity a thing, don't you? The faster you go, the less time you experience. It's like he's inviting us to explore the universe.
Right.
So it gives like even like a scientific basis
Yes.
for believing in God. With Ava's, it just sort of was like, here it is,
Mhm.
moving on. So
Yeah.
um, not that I think it was a bad thing. I don't think it was a bad part of it. It gave, I think, some additional texture to her character. Um, and I think that's important. And what I also didn't, what I also appreciated was it didn't then turn into, Ryland going, you knucklehead, we're scientists, this. So it was, it was there. It was respected. Again, I would have loved if we could have done more with that. Um, but I did like the fact that, as I know many scientists who are people of deep faith, that,
Mhm.
these things do not have to be separate.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, it really adds texture to her character because
Hmm.
she seems so very rational. Every decision she makes is very driven by what is for the greater good, to even to the extent and you see even more of that in the book where she kind of cuts corners on procedure because it's like we don't have time to and at some point they haul her into some kind of inquiry because of something that she's done and she's like I have carte blanche from all the governments of the world to do what I need to do to save humanity. I don't have to, tech companies like violating copyright or something like
Hmm.
that. And she's like,
Hmm.
give me a break. That felt very
Hmm.
real, right? Like these companies are like, you're using our technology without permission. Yeah, we're trying to save humanity. So get lost.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, putting that in her mouth is it's an interesting choice. But it just
Hmm.
also, even the way she said it was just like, yeah, this is a decision I've made to believe. And
Yeah.
it suits me. It works for what I need to do. Yeah.
Well, and there was a fascinating article, and we can put it in the show notes. That was from EJ Fosteros, I believe it is. On Substack, he was writing on in Sojourners, and he just posted
Okay.
the beginning of his article that was the headline is Ryland Grace isn't a Christian, but is somehow still the best Christian I know.
Yeah.
Um, and it really goes deep into um, why his anonymous Christianity might be the only true Christianity at the moment.
Mhm.
No, this wasn't Fosteros. This was Kevin Young on Reconstructing Faith.
Mm.
Um, and basically, what you see of Ryland is eventually a person who is willing to, give of himself um, for others.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, so there's even in Kirsten, the other two astronauts' case, they were willing to do it. Like they were making the deliberate choice. Ryland doesn't,
Yeah.
but eventually then does make the choice when he gives up his going back to Earth to save Rocky
Yep. Yep.
and Rocky's
Yeah.
people or Rocky's. I don't know, people, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Rocky's
we're
race.
recording this on March 30th, and in just a few days, Christian churches across the world will hear this story of depending on which version they hear, of Jesus washing his friends' feet, giving this teaching, and saying, no one has greater love than to lay down their life for their friends. And that is what he agrees to do. And in fact, I wanted to ask you, because one of the things you were worried about is whether they were going to kind of shortchange that decision that he makes, because he has to, like, he can't do both at the end. He can save Rocky and Rocky's planet, or he can go home. He cannot do both. So did that feel satisfying in the way that they did that ultimately?
Yes, I think my concern going in was whether or not they were going to shortchange the uh, Ava having to, you know, kidnap him to
Mm.
go, and
Okay.
whether they were going to be like he's the hero who was like, "Yep, I'm
Got
going to
it.
do
Okay.
this."
Got it.
But so the yeah, I'm glad I was so glad they left that, because it was so real, and so it fit with Ryland's character.
Yeah.
But I think it did also work with, the sacrifice that Ryland was having to make in knowing that, I can go home, I can be back on Earth, I can do all of that. But if I do that, it's not just Rocky who's going to die, it's Rocky's planet is going to
Yeah.
die.
Yeah.
And so he's willing to go and give up his chance to go back to Earth.
Hmm.
And even at the end of the film, you kind of get that question: is Ryland going to go back? My
Hmm.
guess is no.
Yeah. I would agree. And I think they really played up I mean, it's evident that, yeah, the whole civilization, all of the Iridians are going to die if Ryland does not make this choice. But the dialogue in that, which I imagine is matched in the book, he says he's going to run out of fuel. He's going to just be dead in the water, so to speak, run out of his own, fuel in terms of, like, he's going to starve, or he's going to die of radiation, which is what killed the rest of his crew, because they were not protected by the astrophage that was close to where Rocky's habitat or his workshop was. So he is like, I need to save my friend from this suffering, in addition to the the death that would come from and the genocide of an entire planet. So it's personal, and that relates to something that we saw, and it was really beautifully expressed in Yao, the Captain Yao, who's the pilot, who says, bravery is just about someone that it's worth being a hero for. That's really what bravery is, like somebody that you're willing to take on that mantle for. And we see that happen. That's what
Mhm.
Ryland was missing. That's implied, is
Yeah,
that he, um, and so that choice, it's a personal choice,
yeah.
that he makes.
And Ava's line, you don't even have a dog.
Right. Yes. And I loved the way, I mean, she said, the like, don't put this on your students. It's so insulting. I love
Mhm.
that word insult. Like, the idea that you care so much about your students that you're not going to do this thing that you're capable of doing to save their lives. Instead, you wanted to stay on Earth and just, if you really cared about them, you would do this
You
thing.
would do this. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and I'm curious too, like, thinking about his, I mean, the kind of idea and the suggestion is that he's a coward. Like, he says, I'm not brave enough to do this. I don't have the bravery. And it really got me thinking. I mean, I think that the movie invites us to ask ourselves the question, would you do this? And I think it's interesting that Ryland, it really is a matter of cowardice as opposed to confidence. Like, he doesn't argue that I mean, he says, I don't know how to moonwalk. I can't do a spacewalk and all of this, but that's more like, I don't have the personal courage to do it, as opposed to, I mean, he doesn't dispute the fact that he knows more about astrophage than anyone else. And I think what would keep me from going is not as much the bravery stuff as the kind of someone else's is knows more. Like, I don't know enough to do this.
Mhm.
Um, and I think if someone were able to convince me that I actually had my set of skills were the exact skills needed for a task, I would find it hard to say no.
Mhm.
I don't consider myself a super courageous person, but it's like that's what would be hard for me. Is like I get up there and I'm like, "Oh wow, there was this piece of knowledge that I needed and this other person had instead, and now all of humanity is screwed because I don't have what it takes." So I don't know how you think about that, or if it inspired you to think about if you would go, or what would inspire you to
Oh,
go or
I
not.
mean, I actually had one of my posts about that had some Project Hail Mary. I mean, that was one of the things that was in there was I hope that I would say yes.
Mhm.
I don't know that I can say because I've never ever been in any kind of situation where I've had to make a choice
Yeah.
with literally my life on the line.
Mhm.
Um, and so would I say yes? With whether it was getting on a spaceship and never seeing Earth again, or standing up for somebody who is um, being unjustly arrested or something like that. Am I willing to do that?
Mhm.
And not having, again, I would like to say yes that I would,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
don't until I get into a time like that. It's,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
It's impossible to know.
yeah.
Um,
Well,
yeah.
and there was a thing, Jamar Tisby's book, The Spirit of Justice. Have you read that?
Mm-mm.
Oh, so good, so good. But as he goes through all these stories of people fighting for racial justice, it's these profiles of largely people most of us have no idea who they are. um, but he keeps coming back to these four ideas: faith, courage, imagination, and resilience.
Ah.
And that's really the crux for him of what it means to be brave. um, is having these things: faith,
Mhm.
courage, imagine it. Faith in something doesn't have to be in God. Courage to step out into something, imagination to figure out and try to work with what isn't clear yet, and resilience to just keep going.
Mm.
Um, and I think about that with Ryland and with Rocky. That
Mhm.
and even with the other scientists on Earth that we saw, especially Ava's, because that's really the primary one you see. She has a faith in both the book and the film, different types of things. But she's got imagination, she's got resilience,
Yeah.
and she's got courage to just be like, we're doing this. So
Mhm.
I
Fascinating.
just
Yeah.
that was a really great book that I, read just a couple of year ago, year and a half ago, something like that. And those four things have really stuck with me.
Yeah. How
Um,
you really see those at work, and maybe the faith that Ryland, because we see all the other things too. I mean, he's imaginative. He keeps going once he's there's no choice. Like, he's discovered, like, through this renewal of this regaining of memory, he's like, "Oh wow, I you know um, wasn't originally the one going to be here," but um, I think what he has faith in is you mentioned just the themes of compassion and empathy that are just so evident in the movie, and the relationship itself is really, and the desire to learn more and to understand scientifically what's going on. Both of those things are
mhm,
a kind of a different way of thinking about faith. Um,
mhm.
but did you want to talk a little bit about the compassion and empathy? I mean, just as major themes.
Well, the thing with compassion and empathy, the I guess maybe the thing I would go with that right now is what I saw that they did in the film that wasn't as explicit in the book, of how things on the Hail Mary represented so many different countries.
Mm. Hmm.
Um, and there was one moment in particular that I noticed that, and that was when they were withdrawing sort of the tunnel. when they were about ready to part ways, you see a sign or a little sticker on the side of the Hail Mary that says Japan.
Oh, yes, I noticed that the second
And
time. Yeah.
and it's kind of like I remember seeing like the space arm on the space shuttle always had Canada on the side.
Mhm.
And it was these reminders of all these different pieces that came from presumably these different cultures and different countries that contributed to make this thing happen. And you saw that even in the music that was chosen and the way one of the podcasts that I've listened to over the last couple weeks since this came out, they talked about how they really tried to bring in internet different cultures and different music to represent that this was the earth doing this.
Mhm.
So yeah, that it wasn't just, yay, Americans did it. It was everybody having to do it together. And
Mhm.
within that is compassion and empathy that we're in this together and we've got to support one another and we have to care for one another. We have to have patience with one another across our language and cultural differences. And, um, as opposed to just saying our way is the right way.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
It really is, and that was, I think, I'm really glad you mentioned that because it is much more subtle. I mean, you think about, the other Andy Weir book movie adaptation, The Martian, where it's very explicit that there's this cooperation. I mean, China helps the fueling mission happen, and the Ares crew is, I mean, there's a German on there, and, and there's, like, an international kind of crew, and you don't have that as much here, but it's very evident, and in fact, Eva Stratt kind of talks about, like, we're gonna lose a quarter of the population even if the Hail Mary works and we get information about how to defeat the astrophage because the sun's gonna cool, crops are gonna fail. If they work together to ration food, we will only lose a quarter of the population, but you know that they won't. I mean, like, so she had kind of this cynicism of like, once people start starving, it's going to be everyone for themselves. And I guess that relates to a question that I have, and I loved this. Um, I mean, we know that the world is saved um, because, well, in the book we hear that the sun, as you said, the sun no longer dims, or maybe it's returning to full power. I'm not sure, but um, in the movie we know Ryland knows only that the Hail Mary is repaired, so he could go home. We see Eva Stratt with she gets the message and she says to the people, "Let's begin." That maybe that's the last thing she says. And then I guess you have the epilogue with Ryland and on Arid. But let's begin. Like their work has only just begun, and so it's still an open question at that point. Will they work together? Will
Mhm.
they be able to pull this off? And I love that it's still a an open ended kind of kind of thing.
Well, and is there a message, a subtle or maybe not so subtle message for us as watchers of that? Because while I know Andy Weir, again, one of the interviews we heard said, I wasn't trying to make a political point. I wasn't,
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. But he, there was, there is a thing in there that's a little bit of kind of like the Don't Look Up, the Netflix
Mm-hmm.
movie that came out that, we are on Earth right now facing an existential threat to our planet.
Hmm.
And right now, we're not doing much about it.
Yeah.
And governments of the world are not cooperating to make it happen. Some of them, including our own, are going back on
Hmm.
steps. And so maybe there was something, and I just thought about this when you mentioned that, MaryAnn, that maybe there's something with that at the end of like, okay, Earth, are you going to do anything? You've
Yeah.
got your own existential threat. It may not be astrophage eating your sun, but it is what you are doing to your planet.
Right. Right.
And are you going to do something about it? Or are you going
Mm.
to wait till you have
Mhm.
to pitch, throw the Hail Mary and hope that something can happen? Um,
Yeah. And what's interesting, a lot of people I know who follow climate closely, where they are seeing signs of hope is on the local level. A really good friend of mine was involved before she moved to take another call in another city, Minneapolis, actually. She was part of the Faith Alliance for Climate Solutions, which was a local, I don't know if it's got chapters everywhere, but there's some in Northern Virginia, and they would work very locally, like with county government to like new school buses are electric. That examples of something that. So here's the connection to Project Hail Mary. Is think about what you're saying, Ed. Is getting governments to cooperate. It's going to be essential, and it's not really happening even the way it was as much 10 years ago. Even though a lot of signs are that things are accelerating even beyond some of the worst case scenarios that we've heard. And yet, if you get granular enough and local enough and like person to person, maybe there is more uh, partnership possible. Because what I really noticed the second time is the trust that is built between these two characters that happens really early on. I mean, they kind of have to shortcut a lot in the movie, but um, they first meet and Rocky does the little puppet of like, get back on your ship. And he's doing that so that he can put oxygen into the tunnel and gravity so that Ryland doesn't need to wear his suit. And there's this moment where like Rocky's like, he gestures to take his helmet off. And Ryland's like, man, if I'm wrong, that's really bad. Like there's no going back. And you see this moment of decision. I am going to trust, and how much trust we put in one another and the vulnerability of trusting someone else. And he does. I mean, it's not easy, but he takes off that and he breathes. And I don't know, I think it's just easier to trust up close, right? People are more
mm,
complicated. They're not the stereotypes that we think they are. And we can really see each other's humanity. So that moment really struck me this second time that I watched it,
yeah.
of what it would take. And that's an act of bravery too, right? You're really
Hmm.
literally putting
Hmm.
your life into the hands of this alien that you know very little about.
Yeah. Yeah. What is the line? It's very hard. I mean, you can do it, but it's very hard to hate up close.
Yeah, that's right.
Um,
That's right. Yeah.
and and Ryland's initial reaction though is fear.
Yeah.
There's this other ship. Okay,
Hmm.
I'm out. Do you have
Yeah.
this wonderfully depicted like chase, like zooming around and then
Yes.
forward, 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 forward.
Yep.
And
Doop,
just
doop,
it was
doop.
so great. It was lovely.
Yeah.
Um, but his initial reaction was fear.
Yeah.
And um
Shield. What does he say? Shields up.
shields up. The
She's like,
ship's like, we don't have shields.
there are no shields.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Um,
Boy, that'll preach, right? I mean, these
yeah.
these defenses that we want to have, and our own just vulnerable humanity, you know.
Hmm.
Um, I think it's so
Yeah.
interesting in that note that they never explain what happened to Yao, and I can't remember the name of the Russian. I mean, they died in transit, and there's really no explanation given. But it
And I
really
don't think
does
they
show.
explained it in the book either.
I don't think they did either. Yeah, I mean, they did
Yeah.
not survive the 11-year coma, and that was the other thing that I think they tell me if they changed this a little in the way Strat explains her that she's going to compel Ryland to go on this mission. In the movie, she says, "I believe in you more than you believe in yourself." And it really is an affirmation of him. And I feel like in the book, it's a little more, I have no choice left. Like, you are all I've got. And it's a little less, I mean, she's kind of, I believe you can do it, but it's also like, this is all I can do is this. And I don't know if you remembered it that same way, but it was just a little bit, and that's a little bit more like Ryan Gosling is the hero, like so we know he can do this, but she doesn't know
Mhm.
that he can do this in the book
No,
as
no.
much.
In the book, it was a genetic marker.
Yes, that's
You know,
true. Yeah.
and so it was a you've got you've got this marker that's going to enable you to survive this hypersleep.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah, that's something they cut. If you all have just seen the movie and you're like,
yeah,
what on earth are they talking about? There was this,
yeah, yeah. So
genetic
yeah, I
thing.
mean, she was just forced into it of like, okay, yes, you know the science, and yes, you've got the genetic marker, but you're a knucklehead, and
Yeah.
I got no other choice.
Yeah, that's right.
Um,
And that is
so
very, I mean, we've talked a lot in this series about hope punk and the sort of like, we're going to do the right thing, even if we might be doomed. And the book feels a lot more that way of like, I'm out of options. You are it. You're a doofus and you're kind of a coward. I think she even calls him a coward. And they just, and also the character of Carl, we haven't talked about wonderful Carl, his buddy who, they go to the hardware store together and buy all the duct tape and the Reynolds wrap and all that stuff. Such a fun scene. And
cart
he
bowling or
too,
cart basketball.
right. The kind of, yeah, playing the basketball. He he also is there to kind of evoke the heroism of Ryland Grace,
Hmm.
which again is a little, I would say it's like 5% more Hollywoodized, his heroism than in
Hmm.
the book where he's their last resort. He's their Hail Mary. The Hail Mary on the Hail Mary is that
Hmm.
character. So
Hmm. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Anything else you want to kind of
Well,
lift up?
I just kind of wanted to do a couple just kind of quick hitters if we
Yeah.
could. First of all, by the way, I guess maybe one other reluctance, and I'm trying to remember if you had said this somewhere in one of our exchanges or something, but I did see it somewhere that they did leave out the wonderful line that Rocky has, where he says, I am scary space monster. You are leaky space blob. Like,
Yes.
that
So good.
was such a great book line,
Yeah.
and I don't know how they'd fit it in the film, but I was
Yeah.
sad
That
that
was
that
a
wasn't
lack.
there, so
We do
yeah.
get Rocky hate Mark.
Yes, we do.
The person that the person who is now with Ryland's former partner, um, Mark. So, um,
Mm.
yeah. Do you want to share one of your daughter's theories
Yeah.
about Mark?
So yes, one of our older daughter, um, before we kind of heard the real story behind how that line came about, she said that her theory was, well, maybe Mark was Mark, Watney, that Mark Watney got back from Mars and took Ryland Grace's girlfriend or,
That's right. That's
partner
right.
away, and yeah,
That is
yeah,
my headcanon. That is the mark. It will always
yes,
be. But yeah, for those who don't know, Ryan Gosling has a really good friend named Mark and was on set that day. And there was a lot of improv in this movie, and that was a bit of it. I was with this woman, but my head was in the clouds, and she was right, and she's with Mark now, and we get this wonderful James Ortiz, the voice of Rocky, improving Rocky hate Mark.
Rocky hate Mark,
So good.
so good,
So
so
I
good.
love it. The other
Yeah,
thing that,
uh,
if we're just kind of picking up little tidbits, is,
yeah,
and you meant, I mentioned this to you yesterday in text, and you were like, "Oh, you should mention that." Um, in the book, they really emphasize that Ryland really tries not to bring a lot of assumptions to uh, who Rocky, or how he reproduce, and he's not even really a he. Like, he just kind of, Ryland uses the he pronoun with Rocky just by kind of a default, but there's no sense of gender. And in fact, when Ryland asks Rocky about his mate, he uses they as a pronoun,
mhm,
which I thought was great because maybe they reproduce asexually. Like maybe there is only one gender. Does gender even make sense? I just thought that was a very kind of subtly cool.
yeah,
That I think a true scientist would not bring an assumption that if Rocky's male, then his mate is female. Just those
mhm,
categories don't even make sense on Arid, perhaps. So anyway, that was
yeah,
just a little
yeah,
side note.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, and I picked up on that, when we first saw it too, and I, nudged. I don't remember which kid I was next to, but I was like, "Hey, did they just?" Yeah, they
Yeah,
did.
yeah,
Yeah. So, um, I
really neat.
also wanted to just there's several scenes that were just visually breathtaking in the film. And I do love in a book that you can kind of create your own imagination for things.
Mhm.
But there was just a couple of points that, especially the part where Ryland is on top of the ship and they're first using the petroscope to and the collector, and they put on this filter and it's him with all the red, like the dots and the glow. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And that is a
Just
practical effect. If you listen to Lord
yes.
and Miller, the directors, talk about it, they used chicken wire and infrared lights and like a water sort of screen to make it sort of sparkly and sort of modeled. Incredible.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
such an achievement. It's absolutely
Yeah.
gorgeous, and I'm so happy that it's doing well in the theaters.
Hmm.
So I'm really pleased people are seeing it. I think it's got a great message. It feels good. We had a comment in the chat here. It says, "E.T. came to us during the Cold War, and we were all hungry for a sweet alien. This is coming to us when the world is angry. Again, a sweet alien." Um, and asked for thoughts. I think that's a perfect thought. I mean, I think it absolutely is a book that we needed and a story that we needed um, at this point. So,
Absolutely.
anything else
Absolutely.
that you? Last question that I wanted to ask you is, and I haven't prepared you for this, so I'm springing this on you. But did you have a favorite T-shirt of Ryland Grace has some amazing
Some
they're
amazing
science
t-shirt.
nerd T-shirts, but
Yes.
was there anyone that you would want
Yep.
or yeah.
I had potential
Yeah, I liked
with
that
the
one.
rock at the bottom of the hill.
Yes,
That was the
yes.
best.
Yeah,
That was
I
my
like that one
favorite.
too.
Yeah.
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 Also, I liked the element of surprise,
Mhm.
and,
Mhm.
that one was good, but, yeah, they really, his the creation, the visual creation of the Ryland Grace character, like, he becomes the dude at the beginning almost because 'cause he's got the beard, and he's drinking vodka out of the bag,
The IV
and
bag.
the
Yeah.
glass sunglasses. He's really like, man, I'm just up here. I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm just gonna ride my own melt. And yeah, his sweaters and stuff, just fantastic, fantastic
Yeah.
design of that character.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. So good. So good.
four
Yeah.
stars.
Easy. Yeah. Yeah.
So
It was so yeah, I'm hopeful that it is still very much in the mindset, and wouldn't be surprised if come December it gets a re-release, come Oscar
yeah,
nomination time. I think it's definitely I'd be shocked if it didn't get some nominations. I mean,
yeah,
may not get a best pick, may show up as one of the many best picture out, nominees, but um yeah, just was so great. I mean,
yeah.
if Gravity won, didn't Gravity win best picture?
Oh, I don't know if it won, but it definitely got
I know it
nominated. I don't know for
got
sure.
nominated. Like if
Yeah.
Gravity got nominated, this needs to get nominated for
Absolutely.
sure.
I think what
Yeah.
will be interesting is Dune Part 3 will definitely get nominated. I mean, unless
Mhm.
something really unusual happens. And so would they do two genre science fiction
Yeah.
movies?
Yeah.
I hope
Yeah.
so. I
I
think
hope
it's
so.
well worth, and Ryan Gosling is great, amazing range. I mean, his physical comedy, like that scene that at the beginning where he's like he flops out of the cryo sleep, thing, and he's like almost like a caterpillar inching along, and funny, good physical humor, and
Mhm.
lots of tears, lots of emotion, hilarious pratfalls. Yeah, I would, depending on who else pops up this year, I wouldn't hate
Yeah.
a best actor nomination for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Although I will say I mentioned about missing some of the kind of getting his wits about him scenes. I'm not going to say which, but there's a few parts that in the book they talk about during that I'm glad we didn't get in the movie. I'm just
yeah,
going to leave it at that.
yeah.
So,
I know what I'm picking up what you're putting down.
yep, yep,
So yeah.
yep. So,
Well, there it is. There it
yeah.
is. So thank you
So
all
we're
for joining
yeah,
us. Yeah.
and we're going to make a major shift for when again just a reminder for next week 1 o'clock Eastern time. We're going to be doing kind of I think a general, won't be like very specific on like an episode, but um the HBO Max show The Pit, the medical drama. Um, and yeah, so that's sorry, phone call just popped up right at that moment. Um, yeah, so we'll be doing that next Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern. And again, it'll be on all the podcast feeds and all that stuff too, but with our two special chaplain guests. So
yes. All right.
yeah.
Thank you all for joining us.
Thanks, friends.
And we'll see you next time.
You got it.
Bye,
See ya.
everyone. Bye.